Hey, what's up guys? JB here. So many of us here on Global have been enjoying the recently released Summer Jaden, but over on the Japanese side they actually got a wind missile unit of their own, and that is Cherise here. Now this character has already shown up in the story for us, and I think she actually did get quite a few votes in the popularity contest. Now Cherise is coming into the game as a 70 cost UR unit. Now honestly I thought that we were done with those. You know, it seems we've just been getting barraged with higher cost 90 and 100 cost units, you know, over the past year. But here we are. And the good thing though is that this unit is actually going to be part of the permanent summoning pool, you know, once she is released on Global here in a few months. Now I think the question is going to be, can this lower cost unit actually compete with the higher cost options that are out there? So let's jump into the preview and check it out. Now, as I mentioned, this is a 70 cost wind unit. Again, that is just crazy to me because we do have Halloween Little Leela already in the game for the wind element at 70 cost. She is a very strong unit in her own right. So really this is just making Wind, you know, extremely capable, you know, in terms of putting together very efficient low-cost teams for restricted content. You know, I think of a team like HLL, Cherise, and Joom, and that fits into that 240 cost rule set, which is actually pretty strong. Now this unit has the base move of 3. She does have a jump of 2, which I always like, especially on a ranged unit like this. And as is standard for this style of unit, she can wear hats and cloth. Now starting out here with Cherise's TMR, and you know, this one has a combination of effects that I haven't seen before on a TMR, and it brings a self-only 40% dex buff, and then it's also adding a 20% AP reduction for 3 turns. The base stats on this accessory are pretty nice as well. It's bringing in 10 accuracy as well as 5 agility. Now I do think the effect on this could be pretty decent for many ranged units out there. You know, dex is one of the main attributes that they like to have in their stats. And many of those jobs are actually pretty AP hungry, so that AP reduction could come in pretty clutch as well. Despite those things, you know, I do think this is pretty niche overall, and I don't think that you would even consider this on Cherise herself, you know, due to some new equipment that's going to be coming into the game introduced with her, and we'll look at that later in the video. Now moving down into her stats, and we're seeing below average HP and attack amongst her UR competition. Now in terms of her role as sort of a long-range missile attacker, more or less this is just what we've come to expect, you know, for these units at this point. Now on the brighter side, we are above average in both dex and agility, and that base agility in particular is going to be among the highest in the game, actually only trailing Nivlu's 65 at the moment. That dex value is very solid as well. It's actually going to have her coming in the top 15 for that category. Now her luck is just at an average level here, so not a liability and not a strength for this unit. Looking over at the accuracy and evade, definitely not suitable for an evade build whatsoever. But she can actually become a very accurate unit, particularly when she's using one of her passives, and that's going to get her to that innate 196 value here. So she will come in, you know, just among the top 15 in that category as well, which is very nice. For Cherise's mastery ability, you know, I do actually think this one is pretty decent. You know, 10% missile res penetration she's getting, so not quite as much as Summer Jaden gets, but I do actually think it's made up for with the additional effect that she gets here on the mastery, which is a 15% reduced AP cost. Defensively for Cherise, now we know this isn't generally a strength for missile-based units, but she does actually have a couple of good things going on here. She has that 6 base spirit, which I like. Now on the resist side, you know, we are positive to pierce and magic at 10%, and then her strongest one there is 15% against missile damage. So those are all actually pretty good, especially for a ranged unit. Now, unfortunately for Cherise, she is coming in with that -10 to slash resistance, and that's definitely going to be her biggest worry, especially with that 0 defense backing it up. Now, looking down at the ailment resist for Cherise, she has a couple of nice ones with the confuse and stop resist, though the stop is at that lesser value. But the other major is her toad resist here at 50%, and I think it's definitely been a minute since I've seen toad resist on a unit in this game. And I do actually consider that a little bit of a negative, you know, just because there really isn't any units out there that are using this ailment, so it's kind of just a wasted resist at the moment. You know, the only one who I can think of that actually even uses that would be Mish, and you know, we just don't really see him all that often, so maybe it is something that we'll see on a unit in the future, and it could come in useful then. You know, until then it's definitely kind of a negative for me. All right, moving on into Cherise's passives and counters, and I think there is a couple of potential build paths for us here. And the first one, as always, is my all-purpose build, and I think you're definitely going to be wanting option 2 here, and that's going to be her defense penetration. She's picking up 40 defense penetration there. Now that does come along with a very nice 25 accuracy tied into it. Now I think for most cases I would pair this with option 4 here, which is that additional range 2 that she's picking up from her gunner sub job. She does actually have some flexibility here though. You can actually actually move her down with a range 1 passive, and you might opt for that in autoplay, maybe on some smaller maps, and to make sure that she's actually getting off her second buff, if you wanted to use that. Now on the flip side, maybe another potential build would be an all-out range build, and in that case you would use both options 1 and 4 to get her up to a 3 total range. And that is something that we like to do generally in manual play, just to really get as much range as possible. And in that particular mode, we don't see a lot of tanks, just because hate is not a mechanic in manuals, so high defense is not something that's generally seen, all that often. So sometimes you are actually able to drop that defense penetration and still be in a decent spot. Now another passive I am a little bit intrigued by here is that initial AP of 15, which is option number 3. And I think that maybe could be interesting for maybe some blitz or rush style strategies where you're really looking to optimize her early turns and starting to do damage really quickly and early on in the battle. I think it is something that I would need to play around with a little bit, before I could wholeheartedly recommend that one, but it is something that I will be testing and playing around with, once she does come to global. Even at that though, it's definitely going to be pretty niche. On the counter side for Cherise, definitely is not going to be a strength for this unit. I would probably settle on one of these two options that I have here. Neither of them are bringing any damage. The one from Hunter, though, is bringing a couple of nice imperils with both the missile and wind resistance down. And I do actually like this one quite a bit for guild raids. If you are able to get this to proc off on the boss's first turn, that's going to be 2 debuffs applied to the boss, without having to take any actions, which is very, very nice. Now this counter actually was recently buffed on the Japanese side as part of the Hunter job revisions, and it picked up an additional 2 range, getting it up to that 6 base range, which is very strong as well. Aside from that though, if you didn't really care for that one, there is this damage reduction one, which could be useful, depending on your setup. Alright, so let's move into Cherise's main job skills, and we're going to start with her buffs. And in the main job, Hunters actually only get 1 buff. Cherise's is upgraded though as part of her EX job overhaul, and it is actually packing quite a punch here, just look at all these effects that it's getting. And this one is going to be bringing her allies 25% agility and 25 missile resistance. Now Cherise on top of that will get 40% attack and a 50% chance to block counters. If that weren't enough, it's also going to be restoring 20 AP on use. So this is just a staggering amount of utility here coming from just the one single buff here. So she can use this and she doesn't really need to do anything else in terms of buffing, she's just going to be ready to go at that point. And I think that really is going to be the draw and the niche of this unit, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move on here. Now shifting over into Cherise's attacks here, and the first one is a range 4 with an additional on the area of effect. This one has a range height of up to 6 on the AoE, which is pretty crazy. This one is a medium 165% mod, and it's coming in with 3 post-damage debuffs. And we're going to be reducing CT by up to 15, we're lowering the enemy's range by 1, and their missile attack is going down by 40. Very interesting debuff here to me. And when you think about what this skill is doing, in addition to maybe the missile resistance that she's picking up from her self buff, it's really kind of positioning this unit as sort of an anti-missile tool. So not only is she buffing up your team's defenses with the resistance, but she's also lowering the capability of those enemy missile attackers. And I really don't think that's a combination that we've seen ever before on a unit. Her next ability is the Hunter's Triple Flight ability, aptly named since this one is a 3-hit attack. And this one is coming in with a range 4 with the range height of 5, has that medium 165% mod. When this one crits, it will reduce 20 AP from the target. It does have a potential 60 additional modifier if the target is either hasted or berserked. That was one of the enhancements as well that it just recently got on the Japanese side. Now that berserk status in particular is pretty interesting for the Hunter job. One skill that I don't have listed here on the slide is her low AP skill, and that one does bring a 25% chance to berserk the target. So that is actually the tie-in there for that one. Her next attack is Armor Piercing Arrow. This one will actually give her an additional 40 defense penetration, just for this particular skill, and it does that prior to the damage hitting. So the AI will definitely be looking to favor this skill on any high defense tanks out there that she comes across. It does have a post-damage debuff that it applies as well, and that's going to bring the target's defense down by 25 on top of it. So pretty decent tank busting skill here. Her next attack is her Job 25 skill. Again, this is a base range of 4 with that range height of 5, and again has that 165 modifier on it, so no large modifiers here at all for Cherise and these skills. Now prior to the damage, it is bringing in 2 effects, and that's going to be a 25% missile imperil as well as a 100% reduction in the counter chance of the target. And both of those debuffs are going to last for 3 turns. Very nice skill here, you know, outside of her limit burst, you know, this is definitely going to be her hardest hitting skill because of that imperil coming prior to the damage. And this does offer very nice synergy with other wind missile units out there, you know, such as Summer Jaden that we just got here in Global, you know, or even just missile units in general if you were looking for more of a rainbow or dual element setup. So definitely a nice skill and very nice debuff here for Cherise. Now the last one I have here is her Limit Burst, and this one, similar to Eliza before her, you know, gets an added range on this one. So it's getting up to that 6 total range, including that cross AoE, which is very nice. This one has one effect prior to the damage, and that's going to be a general dispel. So this will be removing hate, you know, any buffs or haste from any of the units that it targets. And it does also reduce Cherise's own hate by 5. So pretty decent LB here, you know, in my opinion. She will be looking to lead off most battles with this one, you know, just because it is her longest range skill and it has that 200% modifier on it. So definitely nice to have access to a dispel so early in the battle and sort of strip off any buffs that might have gone up on the enemy's first turn. So I do like that quite a bit, and I think it definitely offers her a nice advantage there in terms of her skills. All right, let's take a look at Cherise's sub jobs here next. Her main job sub from Hunter is identical to Eliza's if you're familiar with hers. It has a really nice self buff here to give an additional range and greatly increase her accuracy. So this is really an effective tool for evade hunting with that plus 60 accuracy mod. And this is actually one of 2 ways that she can actively increase her range as well. Now the second skill that she gets from Hunter here is another attack, and this one just offers her a way to really pierce through an enemy's defenses. It gives her access to 50 missile penetration and an additional 50 defense penetration just active for this one particular attack. So in a completed build, you know, this is essentially going to have her in a place where she's almost completely ignoring enemies' defenses. Now keep in mind that this does have a cast time associated with it, but I have actually seen Eliza use this quite a bit, so you know, it is actually a pretty decent skill. Strider is definitely going to offer her another damage type. It's bringing in that slash damage, of course. Now I don't know how often I would personally look to use this one in PvP, you know, just because of how frail this unit is in general. I don't think I would necessarily want her moving up towards the front line in order to take advantage of these slash-based skills. The job itself does bring a pretty nice buff in Spirit Ward there, you know, recently enhanced to have that 25 spirit on it. I do think this job is pretty nice for PvE use. You know, of course, it's bringing in Constricting Cleave for that 25% chance to slow, and it does actually have a 2-hit slash chain attack on top of it. Now her last sub job here is Gunner, and I definitely can see some more use for this one. It has a very nice buff in aimed fire. You know, to this day, you know, it is a very strong buff. It's bringing that additional range with the 38 missile attack. And I think this one could be really nice for buffing up Summer Jaden, you know, if you had them both in the same party. He doesn't have access to either of these effects, so it would buff him up very, very nicely. The other skills from Gunner are okay, you know, nothing incredible there. The Gunner job revision that just happened recently on the Japanese side has definitely been one of the more disappointing ones in my view, you know, thus far. Vital Shot here is probably the highlight of the kit. It gets some nice added utility there with the ability to dispel haste or AP restore from the enemy. And then it does get bumped up in its range height. It was very hard to use before at a range height 0. It's gone up to a range height of 1. So I think in most cases I would probably be looking to use the Gunner sub job here or her Hunter sub job. You know, either way I think they're both pretty decent for her. Now one thing that I do want to note here is that by the time that we get this unit on global, all of her jobs will have had their job revision. So this unit has reached its final form, so to say, you know, its full potential has been locked. All of these jobs are already enhanced, and we're not going to be anticipating any further upgrades for Cherise, you know, once she is available to us. At least not until the next tier jump happens, you know, maybe we'll be looking for that at the 3rd anniversary, you know, we'll just have to see. All right, so moving on into our future considerations here. And there is actually no new vision card coming along with Cherise. There is, though, a new weapon that's made specifically for her, and that is the Wolf's Bow here. And I say specifically for her because, you know, just like Jaden's blaster that we just got, this one has some conditional passives just for Cherise. Now I am highlighting the crit version here, though I might look actually to the aim version as well. It has quite a bit of accuracy tied into it, but I do think that I will start off with the crit version and go from there. Now for the base stats on this version, we have 133 attack, 14 accuracy, and 18 crit. Very nice all-around stat line there. And crit is definitely very important for this unit. You know, outside of the additional damage that it's going to be bringing, remember that she does have that AP break shot that is going to rely on her critting in order to reduce that AP from the enemy. Now the passives are where this item is really going to shine. Now anyone equipping this bow is going to get access to that 20% missile res penetration, So definitely could be a useful item for some other missile units out there that don't have that inherently in their kit. Now when Cherise herself equips this, she's going to actually get 3 additional passives. She's going to get 15 missile attack, 15 accuracy, and then she's going to get an additional effect when she crits on her attacks. And that's going to give her an additional AP consumption reduction. Now remember, from her mastery ability, she is already starting off at a 15% AP reduction. So this effect here is going to bring that up to a 35% total, after she crits. I do think that is really significant, and this is definitely a very nice item for Cherise, one that you're going to be looking to equip in pretty much any situation. Now with Summer Jaden released this week in Global, I was seeing some nice potential to actually run these 2 units together. So my build goal this week was actually to have an anti-missile team. And I'm going to be having Joom out in front to sort of run interference for them. Now, I do actually think that's a pretty nice use case for this unit, as we've sort of been talking a little bit so far in the video. I do really think that that is what she's intended to excel against, with the missile resistance that she has access to, and then some of the debuffs that she's bringing in. Now, I do think this could be a pretty solid team, in general, but we're really going to focus and cater our build towards that missile teams that we're looking to go against. Now, how are we going to look to want to build that up defensively, and it's actually pretty straightforward. Now, depending on the missile attacker, we're going to be wanting some combination of defense and spirit for our first layer. We're going to want some missile resistance for our second layer. And then that unit and area resistance is always our layer 3 mitigation. So for my equipment, I am using the Wolf's Bow that we were just discussing. And I guess this is just sort of the new normal, for War of the Visions. We've been seeing more and more sort of best-in-slot weapons being introduced for different units out there. Now, along with that bow, I am using the +6 diamond coat here. So between these 2 items, we're going to have 6 very nice passives, already built up onto Cherise. Now for a TMR here, I am using Lara's backpack, and for ranged units in general, this is just one of my go-to options for that purpose. Not only for the nice effect that it has, but also in the base stats and the agility and accuracy that is on the item. Now remember, Cherise does have her aimed fire buff, so in this case it could be more of a stat stick, if I am going to be buffing up Jaden with that particular buff. But as always, TMR is going to be free choice, use whatever is best for your situation or whatever you have access to, so there is definitely a lot of good options that you could put there. Now for an Esper, I am using Dark Tetra here, and this one just has a great combination of not only wind attack, but we're going to have missile resistance in there and some accuracy for good measure. If you weren't actually lucky enough to get this one, I think Odin in there would be just as good. For the vision cards, I'm using Dark Tetra as well. That's going to handle my single target resist and my missile resistance. Rounding out the defensive options, I'm using the Sodali VC. That's going to bring my area resist and agility up. Now offensively, I am using the Nier Automata vision card for the luck up effect, but this one also does bring a very nice crit modifier with the crit damage +25. Of course, the team we have here is very crit heavy, so this is a very nice card for them. Now adding to that, I do have the Ahriman card for the dexterity, and I have Lucia's Test Subjects VC here equipped on Cherise. That's going to give the whole party missile attack up, and it's going to give Cherise a very nice acquired AP as well. Now last but not least, I do have the Jaden VC here as well for that missile res penetration and the party-wide acquired AP. So I think this is definitely a good mix of both offense and defense here in the builds, but some other nice potential options here could be Tetrasulfid for that wind attack up, or maybe you could look for an attack or magic up card, maybe to round out some of their base stats there. Now moving down into the Trust Stones, I am using Slash and Missile Res, as well as HP and Luck for the general bulk, and then I have the All Attack and All Elemental Debuff Resistance. So this is pretty much just my standard defensive build, but rather than the magic resistance, I am focusing a little bit more on missile resistance here, so I have swapped out that passive. I do have this tied into a luck set, just for the general accuracy that it's bringing. But, you could also maybe look at an HP set, and that's going to give maybe some elemental resist and some additional HP that, could be nice for the build that we're running here. Now on the offensive side, I am filling in the other passives that I need here to increase my damage. So that's going to be attack up, defense penetration, crit and crit damage, wind attack, and then that counter reduction. So I think that these 6 passives, along with the other 6 that we were getting from our 2 pieces of equipment, is going to be covering, just about everything that Cherise is going to need. Now for this one, I am tying this all into an AP set, which, I will talk about more in a moment, but other good options there could be an attack set or maybe an agility set. Now, all in all, all 3 of my units here in the build will be above 40% missile resistance. And then remember, Cherise does have that 25% missile resistance buff that she's going to bring to the party. Now, Joom will be at an even higher resistance than that, sort of leading the front line of the team. And I think this would be a very effective anti-missile arena team, or maybe a pretty decent missile hunting attack team for Guild Wars. Now for Guild War defense, I would be looking to mix up the build here just a bit. I think Cherise could actually fill the role of a pretty nice bait unit, for an ice attack team, and then you could put 2 fire units behind her. I think that would actually work very, very well with the Dark Tetra Vision card. That's effective for both fire and wind units. And in that case, you could flash Cherise as the slot 1 bait unit and then just put a couple of fire units in there behind her. Something like maybe King Mont and Setia, and I think that would actually be a pretty good defense team. Now, some people might have actually been scratching their heads at that AP Trust Stone set recommendation, but for optimizing Guild War play, I think more and more players have been turning to this option for specific units or specific plays. For this unit in particular, I do think that AP set would be pretty compelling. So here is an AP analysis that I put together, based on that build that we were just looking at. Now, I intentionally made many of those build choices, with this in mind, so let me walk you through what I was thinking there. And I really wanted to put Cherise in a position where she could just buff a single time, and then she would be in a position to start fighting, thereafter. She could use something like her Limit Burst on the first turn and maybe get that Dispel off on the enemy tank and really set my team up for success in that scenario. So I did really load up my build, in terms of the acquired AP. And I think that really benefits not only Cherise, but it does actually benefit Jaden quite a bit. We have been seeing some of the AP issues that he can run into here on Global recently. But you can see here, she's going to be at a 94% acquired AP rate. So essentially that's almost going to double the amount of AP that she would get from any TP skill, which is quite nice. I did also choose Dark Tetra intentionally because that Esper comes on the board with some initial AP as well. And I capped that all off with the AP Trust Zone set, and that's going to get me an additional 10% acquired AP, as well as an increase in my total AP of 10%. So all that added together, including her mastery, is going to put her at a 25% reduced AP consumption just right out of the box, which is very, very nice. Now look at this turn order here that I've put together. So turn 1, I'm assuming that she's going to be using that 25% agility, 25% missile resistance buff. And with the acquired AP that I've built up, she's going to get 25 AP just from using that single skill. Remember that does actually give her 20 AP restored on top of that, so she's going to get 45 AP just from that one buff. So you can see here that that's putting her at almost 100 AP, right from her turn 1. So moving into turn 2, and that Limit Burst has that super long range. And with our 25% AP cost reduction, that skill is only going to cost us 37 AP, down from its 49 initial cost. So that's going to bring our AP bank down to 61. And this is really where the magic happens for this build. Remember, we have built this unit for very high crit potential. She has that innately, with her high dex. So assuming that we crit on that first attack, our bow's active ability is going to kick in. We're going to get that 20% additional reduced AP cost. So just for the purpose of this mock, for the next couple of turns here, I'm just going to assume Cherise is going to go for her most expensive AP skill, which is going to be her Warning Volley EX at 36 AP. And with that 45% reduction now kicking in, that skill is going to go down to only 20 AP cost. So turn 3, she can use that. She's still going to have 41 AP left in the bank. You can see here turn 4 coming in. She can use it again. She's still going to have 21 AP left after that. So she can actually use it a third time on turn 5 before she actually exhausts all of her AP. So pretty incredible there. We got out an LB and we got out 3 pretty expensive skills there, all after using just a single buff. So I do actually think this is a really cool build. There could even be potential there for a 6th turn, if she was actually opting for some cheaper skills there along the way. And I think this is just a very unique characteristic and potential use for this unit, that she can really go quite far in a battle, just off that single buff that she has in her kit. So I think, as I was sort of saying, earlier on in the video, I think that you could potentially design some strategies around this unique attribute for Cherise, where maybe your front line goes in and disrupts the enemy's buffing sequence very early on in the turn order. Meanwhile, Cherise has already used her single buff and she's good to go for the rest of the battle, and she's going to rain down havoc and really be pumping out damage for the rest of the way, which I think is pretty cool. So what is my verdict on Cherise? For my pros, as we were just talking about earlier in the builds, one of the more interesting things about this unit is its AP efficiency, freeing you up from being tied from something like Ziza's Bells, for example, which I think for a Ranger style unit is pretty unique. Now, similar to Jaden before her, this is a ranged missile unit who kind of excels at going up against other missile units out there. And she's doing all this while having that 70 cost as a unit, while still retaining a powerful UR caliber design and kit, which includes very nice debuffing capability, including a Missile Imperil. And I think that those things, along with her chaining prowess, definitely make her well suited for things like guild raids as well. Now, on the more negative side, like most range units before her, outside of that missile damage, this unit was definitely going to go down fairly easily, especially against slash damage. And she is lacking a little bit, in terms of the total damage that she can put out, just because of her raw base stats. This unit is also coming into a wind element that really is just stacked with other nice options, including several very nice 100 cost units. So outside of cost restricted play, her value may be diminished, just a bit. At the end of the day though, this is a permanent pool unit, so one that most non-win mains, would probably be okay skipping on. However, for those lucky enough to get her, I do believe that there is a nice potential value to be found in this unit. And certainly if cost restricted content or guild raids are important to you, it could nudge this unit maybe into a must-pull category. Alright guys, so that is my future look into Cherise. Pretty unique unit in my opinion, and one that I think really carves an interesting niche out for herself. Wind is really becoming quite stacked when it comes to missile options, especially here on Global where we just got Jaden as well. And it seems that long range is really becoming a hallmark of the elements. I could see really a lot of nice wind groups that you could put together with this unit. Not only that though, but that dark tetra angle that we were talking a little bit about in the mock builds, I think that really opens the door for comboing with the fire element for other range units like Setia or Luartha. So what are you guys thinking out there on this one? Did you find this unit as interesting as I did? Are you a wind main, or is Cherise your next waifu? Or maybe you're on the other side of the coin and you can't wait to get your hands on Alaya to put her up against Cherise and all the other wind units out there. Definitely let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video today, hit that like button. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. And if you like what I'm doing here on the channel, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more. And that's really all I have to say for today. So as always, stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one.